Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next hour, Prime Minister Narendra Modi gives astronaut wings to 4 test pilots for India's first orbital mission in space, Gaganyaan, which is slated for later this year, says the nation will have its own space station by 2035. US President Joe Biden says Israel has agreed to stop military action in Gaza for Ramadan as Hamas studies a proposal for a temporary truce which includes prisoner hostage exchange. The 2024 US presidential race reaches Michigan now with both the Republican Democratic primaries slated for Tuesday. And Sweden clears its final hurdle to join NATO after Hungary's parliament votes to ratify its bid, ending the more than 18 months delay in the process. First of all, Prime Minister Modi is visiting the southern state of Kerala today, and during his visit, the Prime Minister inaugurated 3 important space infrastructure projects worth around 1,800 crore rupees at Vikram Sarabhai Space Centre. This is in Thiruvananthapuram, which is the state capital of Kerala. The projects include the SLV integration facility at the Satish Dhawan Space Centre, Sriharikota, the new semi-cryogenics integrated engine and stage test facility at ISRO Propulsion Complex at Mahendragiri and Trisonic Wind Tunnel at VSSC Thiruvananthapuram. While addressing the event, Prime Minister Modi praised the role of women in India's space program.
आज यहाँ अनेक प्रोजेक्ट्स का लोकार्पण भी किया गया है। इनसे देश का वर्ल्ड क्लास टेक्नोलॉजी के क्षेत्र में सामर्थ्य तो बढ़ेगा ही, साथ ही रोजगार के भी नए अवसर बनेंगे। और साथियों, मुझे खुशी है कि हमारे स्पेस सेक्टर में विमेन पावर, इस विमेन पावर को बहुत महत्व दिया जा रहा है। चंद्रयान हो या गगनयान, महिला वैज्ञानिकों के बिना ऐसे किसी भी मिशन की कल्पना भी नहीं की जा सकती।
The PM also reviewed the progress of the Gaganyaan mission and bestowed astronaut wings to 4 astronaut designates. Gaganyaan mission is India's first human space flight program for which extensive preparations are going on at various Indian Space Research Organization centers. Prime Minister Modi noted that astronaut designates are not just 4 names or individuals, they are 4 Shakti of carrying the aspirations of 140 crore or 1.3 trillion Indians into space. He added that they symbolize the trust, courage, valor and discipline of today's India. I beg your pardon, 1.4 billion Indians in space. And DD India's Aisha Khanam joins us live from Kerala for more on this. Good afternoon to you, Aisha. Tell us more about India's first manned mission in space and contextualize the significance of what has happened today in that light.
Well, India's ambitious mission, this is Gaganyaan, will be launched next year, and this is a mission wherein India will showcase its space prowess, and this is a mission led by none other than the Prime Minister of the country, Narendra Modi. And this mission is all set, and this is going to be this will be launched in 2025. But before that, Gaganyaan is all set to launch a humanoid robo, Mitra, which will do the final test and checkings of the system, and which will fly in actual conditions. And when this robo flight is successful, then the final flight of the astronauts chosen today will be taken up. So Gaganyaan mission is a statement to the world that India is now self-reliant in space technology. India is creating history day by day with the use of its own innovative space technology. And Gaganyaan mission will once again prove that Indians will be in the space, as Prime Minister clearly said that though Rakesh Sharma was the first Indian to take a space walk, the ISRO astronauts who are selected will be the first Indian astronauts on India's indigenous mission. So he said it will be our launch pad, it will be our countdown, and this will be a history for India. So Gaganyaan mission is very significant for India's space vision, and this mission will open up more chapters to take further Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision for International Space Station, and also other targets and challenges that PM has set before Indian Space Research Organization.
All right. Now, apart from bestowing astronaut wings to the 4 test pilots for the Gaganyaan mission and revealing their identities as well, there was a lot of mystery around that. The PM also inaugurated 3 key space infrastructure projects. What can you tell us about them and their significance?
Well, absolutely. This was a momentous occasion and excitement where all Indians were looking up, at the dais where Prime Minister honored these astronaut designates with the astronaut wings. And this was a suspense that ended, since many years people were asking who will be those Indians who will be lucky ones to take the Gaganyaan mission. So that was a momentous occasion, not only for these astronaut designate, but also for their family members, as well as people of India watching them with pride. And besides these, the astronaut revealing the names of these astronauts and introducing to the world, Prime Minister also launched 3 other major infrastructure-related projects from here at Vikram Sarabhai Space Center. Now, PSLV integration facility at Sriharikota will be an interesting infrastructure wherein this PSLV is used for launching the smaller satellites, lesser heavy satellites. So this satellite will be integrated directly at the launchpad towers, mobile towers, so that the time will be reduced and the frequency of the launches can be increased from about 6 to 15 or 16 in a year. So this will help many entrepreneurs, many private players launch small satellites with the help of PSLV, and also PSLV then will also be able to integrate the SSLV, small satellite launch vehicle.
Yes.
Remember, now this is the era of nano satellites. This is the era wherein even the college students are launching satellites. And since India has opened up its space policy for the private players to work jointly with the Indian Space Research Organization, this kind of facility will help increase the launches more in numbers. And also the other facility, the trisonic wind tunnel, is also important. Here at VSCC Vikram Space Sarabhai Center, this was a long pending demand that they required a trisonic wind tunnel, which is used to test the flight systems. These the flights before the rockets, before they are taken to the launch pad, undergo very rigorous and stressful tests, and this is done in this wind tunnel. So this is called trisonic tunnel because it can be tested in 3 different aspects, this can be tested with the speed of the sound, which matches the speed of the sound, lesser than the speed of the sound, and also higher than the speed of the sound.
Right.
So this is another one.
So we're running out of time. We have to move on. I'm afraid we'll get details about what's been left, the 3rd project as well, which has been unveiled, the space infrastructure project, a little later from now. Thanks a lot for joining us for the time being. Addressing the gathering, Prime Minister Modi praised the 4 astronaut designates selected for the Gaganyaan mission as well.
ये सिर्फ 4 नाम और 4 इंसान नहीं है, ये 140 करोड़ एस्पिरेशंस को स्पेस में ले जाने वाली 4 शक्तियां हैं। 40 वर्ष के बाद कोई भारतीय अंतरिक्ष में जाने वाला है, लेकिन इस बार टाइम भी हमारा है, काउंटडाउन भी हमारा है और रॉकेट भी हमारा है.
The U.S. presidential race heads to Michigan now, which is holding its primaries for both Democrats and Republicans. Donald Trump and Nikki Haley are the major Republican candidates in Michigan's GOP primary, and President Biden does not have a major primary challenger in the Democratic contest. While Trump faces another head-to-head matchup with former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, Haley's better-than-expected showing in South Carolina exposed weaknesses in Trump's flank, particularly among more traditional Republicans and moderate voters. Haley insists she will fight on and argues that a large swathe of Republicans continue to reject Donald Trump.
If Donald Trump is the candidate, Republicans will once again lose the election. We'll lose the swing states, we'll lose the House, we'll lose the Senate, and we won't take anything with us. The Republican Party is fully divided, and you now have factions. You can't win a general election if you don't acknowledge the 40% of Republicans who are saying we don't want Donald Trump.
Meanwhile, President Biden is to meet top 4 congressional leaders at the White House on Tuesday to press lawmakers on passing an aid package for Ukraine and Israel, as well as keeping the government running. DD India's Kate Fisher reports from Washington, D.C.
As time runs out for Ukraine on the battlefield and for averting a government shutdown at home, US President Joe Biden's convening the leading Democrat and Republican members of the Senate and the House. They're under pressure to pass the $95 billion national security package that bolsters aid for Ukraine, Israel and the Indo-Pacific. Now, that bill cleared the Senate earlier this month, but Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson has yet to put it to a House vote. It has got majority support in the House, including from a solid core of Republicans, but Speaker Johnson has to manage members on the far right who staunchly oppose additional Ukraine aid, and his tenuous grasp on the Speaker's office could be at risk if he pushes for it. Separately, there's not yet agreement on avoiding a partial government shutdown. Funding for agencies including transportation, agriculture and veterans affairs is due to expire on Friday. Money to keep the rest of the federal government working, including the Pentagon, Homeland Security and the State Department, runs out next week. Now, each side blamed the other on Sunday night for the lack of progress, and it almost certainly means that House and Senate leaders will need yet another stopgap funding bill known as a continuing resolution to keep the government's lights on past Friday. In Washington, Kate Fisher reporting for DD India.
European leaders gathered in Paris on Monday to discuss Russia-Ukraine conflict. Speaking at the opening of the conference, French President Macron called for stronger actions in budgetary and military support for Ukraine. He stressed that his country would support Czech-led initiative to buy hundreds of thousands of ammunition rounds from third countries in order to help the conflict-hit country. He opened the door to European nations sending troops to Ukraine, although he cautioned that there was no consensus at this stage.
Ce soir, de manière très libre et directe.
There was no consensus today to send troops onto the ground in a manner that's official, assumed and endorsed. But on the dynamic, nothing should be excluded. The priority of priorities is the question of ammunition. We have largely mobilized in terms of artillery, a coalition in which, as you know, we had this role of impulsion. But we are all committed around the table to go to the end of the stocks that remain available, and we have identified the third-party countries that could be mobilized in the different categories of ammunition, as well as go to all new proposed solutions to ask third-party countries.
Meanwhile, Russia-Ukraine counteroffensives continue, with the conflict entering its third year on the 24th of February. The Ukrainian Air Force said it destroyed Russia's 11 drone attacks and a barrage of missiles on Sunday overnight. According to Ukrainian officials, Russia in total launched 13 drones, 4 of the Kh-59 guided air missiles, 1 air-to-surface Kh-31P missile and ballistic missiles as well. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said cooperation and determination can end the conflict.
Everything that we do together to defend ourselves from Russian aggression add real security to our nations for decades ahead. Because each of Russia's losses and each of Russia's defeats teaches Russia and the other enemy nations of Europe and the free world as a whole that aggression does not and cannot give results. Cooperation and determinations are the two answers that everyone should give to the question of ending the war and bringing peace closer.
And India has questioned why the UN Security Council has been rendered completely ineffective in resolving the Russia-Ukraine conflict. India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ruchira Kamboj, raised the question at a UN General Assembly plenary meeting held to mark 2 years since the beginning of the Ukraine conflict. Kamboj told the General Assembly that India continues to remain concerned over the situation in Ukraine.
India continues to remain concerned over the situation in Ukraine. We have consistently held the position that no solution can ever come at the cost of human lives. The escalation of hostilities and violence is in no one's interest. We have hence urged from the outset that all efforts be made for an early cessation of hostilities and for an urgent return to the path of dialogue and diplomacy.
And still to come on DD India News Hour, Greece sends its frigate to join an EU mission to protect ships in the Red Sea from Houthi missiles. And a special report on how tough measures against migrants in Texas is making those looking for a better life in the US to head towards Arizona and California westwards.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution. This series is going to tell stories of such changemakers. Watch Changemakers on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. United States President Joe Biden has said that Israel has agreed to cease military operations in Gaza during the holy month of Ramadan, while Hamas reviewed a proposed truce that includes the cessation of hostilities and a prisoner hostage swap. This draft proposal represents the most significant effort in weeks to resolve the conflict that began in October last year. Biden said there was an agreement in principle for a ceasefire between the two sides if the hostages are released. He said that he hoped for a ceasefire in the conflict by the 4th of March.
Well, I hope by the beginning of the weekend. The end of the weekend. At least my national security advisor tells me that we're close. We're close. It's not done yet. And my hope is by next Monday we'll have a ceasefire.
Israeli warplanes on Monday struck the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon, killing one Hezbollah terrorist. The eliminated terrorist was part of Hezbollah's Nasser unit and commanded recent Hezbollah terrorist activities, including anti-tank missile launches towards Israel. In retaliation, Hezbollah launched a volley of rockets at an Israeli aerial surveillance base on Tuesday. And let's find out more about these developments. DD India's Sarah Coates is joining us from Tel Aviv. Good afternoon, Sarah. What more do we know about this framework for a potential 40-day truce deal?
Certainly optimism there by the US President Joe Biden. Optimism here also in Israel, but not so much. Hebrew media is reporting that the framework of this deal would be something like 100 Palestinian prisoners for one captive. It is reporting that these captives that would be released, 40 or so of them, would be elderly, sick, injured, and women. It's also understood that Israel would agree to stop aerial surveillance over Gaza for around 8 hours a day if this deal were to go ahead. And that is something that we did see during the last hostage release and ceasefire deal also. It's also saying that people could gradually return to the northern parts of the Gaza Strip. Of course, there are around 1.5 million Palestinians currently sheltering down in that southern city of Rafah. And really, this is why we are seeing so much urgency there by the United States to get some sort of a deal through before the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, which is expected to fall around the 10th of next month here. Israel, the US, as I said, really trying to push for this deal to try and stop this military operation down in that southern city. So as I said, certainly encouraging words from the US president, but there is still a lot of work to do. We do understand that this Israeli delegation is also in Qatar today, continuing with these talks, while the Qatari Emir is due in Paris for talks with the President Macron.
All right. Now, tensions are also growing on Israel's northern border. How worrying is this development?
Certainly very worrying. What's been seen is a daily escalation since October 7, these cross-border attacks coming from Lebanon and then back into Lebanon from Israel, only really escalating. Earlier this morning, dozens of rockets were fired from Lebanon into northern Israel. Hezbollah has since come out to say that it was, in fact, behind this rocket fire and that it was targeting the Mount Meron air base. It follows a major escalation yesterday with Israel striking very deep inside Lebanon at the Baalbek area, which is in the northeast of the country. This is a Hezbollah stronghold, and these strikes came after Hezbollah downed a pretty advanced military drone. Pretty dramatic pictures coming through of that drone falling out of the sky. So certainly a major escalation yesterday, and it's only continuing to spiral. We did hear from Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant late on Sunday, rather. He said that Israel will increase strikes on Hezbollah whether or not there's a deal in Gaza, saying that we will push Hezbollah back from this border, whether it be through diplomatic or military means. So certainly a lot of concern that this situation in the north could in fact spiral over even further.
Yes, that's always the danger there. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Sarah Coates. Now, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has strongly condemned the terrorist attack perpetrated by Hamas on the 7th of October last year in Israel. He was virtually addressing the 55th session of the UN Human Rights Council.
The conflict in Gaza is of great concern to us all. The humanitarian crisis arising from conflicts require a sustainable solution that gives immediate relief to those most affected. At the same time, we must be clear that terrorism and hostage-taking are unacceptable. It also goes without saying that international humanitarian law must always be respected. It is vital that the conflict does not spread within or beyond the region. And efforts must also focus on seeking a two-state solution where Palestinian people can live within secure borders.
Now, amid tensions in the Red Sea, U.S. Central Command has reported destroying 3 unmanned surface vessels, 2 mobile anti-ship cruise missiles, and a one-way attack unmanned aerial vehicle in self-defense within Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen on Monday. The U.S. command stated that the USVs and ASCMs were an imminent threat to merchant vessels and U.S. Navy ships in the region, adding that these actions were taken to protect freedom of navigation and make international waters safer and more secure. Greece's frigate Hydra departed for the Red Sea on Monday to participate in a mission to protect merchant ships from attacks by Yemen's Houthi militants. Earlier, the Greek government had approved a proposal by Defense Minister Nikos Dendias for the country's participation in the European Union mission dubbed EUNAVFOR Aspides in the Red Sea. France, Italy and Germany are also taking part in the EU mission. Houthi attacks have disrupted Greek-owned commercial vessels' activities at the country's biggest port, Piraeus, since November. Hungary's parliament on Monday ratified Sweden's bid to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The parliament cleared the final obstacle for expansion of the military alliance spurred by Russia's operation in Ukraine. Hungary's vote ended months of delays in completing Sweden's security policy shift and followed a visit by the Swedish Prime Minister on Friday, during which the two countries signed an arms deal.
Hungary's parliament approved Sweden's NATO accession on Monday, clearing the last hurdle before the historic step by the Nordic country, whose neutrality lasted through 2 world wars and the simmering conflict of the Cold War. In a few days, the Scandinavian country will officially become the 32nd member country of the Atlantic Alliance. Sweden's NATO membership was supported by 188 lawmakers in the Hungarian parliament, with 6 against and no abstentions. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government has faced pressure from NATO allies to fall in line and seal Sweden's accession to the alliance. Sweden's Prime Minister hailed this as a historic day.
The parliaments of all NATO countries have now voted for Sweden to become a member of NATO, and it is of course a historic day we are witnessing. Sweden is leaving behind 200 years of neutrality and military non-alignment. It's a big step and something to take seriously, but it is also a very natural step that we take.
Getting approval from the Hungarian parliament was the final hurdle for Stockholm joining NATO. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson visited Budapest on Friday to discuss defense and security cooperation with his Hungarian counterpart. The two sides agreed on a deal that would see Hungary acquire 4 new Swedish-made Gripen fighter jets. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken welcomed Poland's foreign minister on Monday to Washington, noting the significant strengthening of NATO with Sweden's admission. Blinken praised the admission of Sweden in the alliance.
The Hungarian parliament approved the admission of Sweden to NATO. And so with that process now being completed, we very much look forward in the days ahead to finalizing everything and bringing Sweden into our alliance, our shared alliance.
Stockholm abandoned its non-alignment policy for greater safety within the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. But the invasion left Sweden with a pivotal choice, either to join NATO or run the risk of standing alone against an increasingly aggressive near neighbor. The Hungarian ratification will now be signed by the country's Speaker of the Parliament and President within a few days. After that, the remaining formalities are likely to be concluded swiftly. Aman Kumar Himanshu's report for DD India.
Migrants from all over the world have been coming to the US's southern border in record numbers. That's led to the state of Texas taking its own controversial measures to keep people from crossing over. But even as those measures appear to be having an impact, there are signs that migrants are now simply moving west. Our Spitzer reports from California's southern border.
The U.S. state of Texas has taken a tough line on migrants this year. In a move at odds with the federal government, the state has deployed its own tactics and personnel along its more than 2,000-kilometer border with Mexico.
We deployed the National Guard to turn back illegal immigrants. The Texas Department of Public Safety has arrested more than 24,000 criminals.
In the Del Rio, Texas area, formerly the epicenter of the crisis, illegal entries fell 76% in January. But increasingly, migrants are simply heading west to the states of Arizona and California, which have both seen huge surges driven by smuggler networks and information shared through social media and other sources.
And that's why we see that as more and more troops go to the Texas-Mexico border, more people are trying more deserty areas in Arizona, New Mexico, and California, which makes it more difficult both to catch them, but also more treacherous for the migrants themselves.
The migrants' countries of origins have changed too significantly in recent years. More and more people are coming from all over the world, including India. The number of encounters between U.S. border officials and Indian migrants has seen a dramatic uptick in recent years, including here at the border between California and Mexico. From the year ending in September of 2023, there were more than 96,000 encounters, about a 50% increase from a year earlier. The number of Chinese migrants has also risen sharply. Even if they do detain migrants initially, the U.S. doesn't have clear repatriation agreements with some of these origin countries or the capacity to efficiently process asylum claims.
They see that if they can make it to the United States, our system is so backlogged that it will take years before they'll get a chance to prove their case for asylum or some other kind of relief before an immigration judge. During that time, if they can get a work permit, they can at least work in the United States and send money back to their families overseas.
The migrants have created a political problem for President Joe Biden, and prospects to pass a border law that would address some of the issues look slim due to resistance from congressional Republicans. In an election year, the president's opponents would prefer to keep the issue front and center. Ira Spitzer reporting in San Diego, California for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour, we'll be speaking with our expert guest about India's latest space endeavour to put astronauts in space. Taiwan claims there's been an intrusion of 5 Chinese Coast Guard ships in restricted waters of its frontline islands. India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibility. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas. राज्यसभा पोल्स का टीज क्यों स्किप कर दिया था? Only on DD India. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy, and before we go any further, another look at some of our top stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi gives astronaut wings to 4 test pilots for India's first orbital mission in space. Gaganyaan, which is slated for later this year, says the nation will have its own space station by 2035. US President Joe Biden says Israel has agreed to stop military action in Gaza for Ramadan, as Hamas studies a proposal for a temporary truce which includes prisoner hostage swap. And the 2024 US presidential race reaches Michigan, with both the Republican and Democratic primaries slated for Tuesday. Let's now talk about Gaganyaan and how the astronauts have been revealed by Prime Minister Modi today during his Kerala visit. Apart from the inauguration of certain key space infrastructure facilities as well, we're joined by Lieutenant General Retired Anil Bhatt, DG, Indian Space Association. Good afternoon to you, General Bhatt. What do you make of what has happened today in the context of India's overall space aspirations?
Well, you know, the space journey, which has been given a lot of impetus by our present Prime Minister, carries on, and this is another step in it. We know Gaganyaan mission trials, some trials of it have already been carried out, would be launched sometime next year, initially with the Vayamnaut, and then with one of the 3 of these astronauts, 4 of them whose name has been identified today. And they are all from the Air Force, 3 group captains, that is Prashant Balkrishnan Nair, Ajit Krishnan, and Angad Pratap, and Wing Commander Subhanshu Shukla. They have been trained in Bangalore, and I also believe they would have been trained in Russia before, and they would be all ready to go on India's first human flight mission, Gaganyaan, when it takes place.
Right.
These are all steps, and of course, like the Prime Minister announced, that in 2035, we would be having a space station of Indian space station. And by 2040, the first human being would be landed on the moon.
Yes,
So
certainly.
this path which the Prime Minister has defined is going to move forward.
Certainly. Now, just tell us a little bit more about Gaganyaan, because I believe most of the preparations, although they got delayed because of COVID-19, are now in place, and it's just a question of, I guess, a few months now that the mission could be launched into around a 400-kilometer orbit above the Earth's surface.
Yes, the orbit, as you rightly said, is at 400 kilometers. There'll be 3 astronauts in it, and this will be there for approximately 3 days. But what is important is that before human beings, these astronauts are sent there, there would be a robo-astronaut which would be launched next year to test all these things. Because what is most critical in a human space mission is the environmental control, and all those tests, multiple tests have been carried out by ISRO, and they will continue to do it because it has to be totally safe when we are launching human beings into space.
Certainly. And in terms of India's overall strategy where space is concerned, how critical is putting humans up there? Because the PM also today said that we intend to go to the moon again as well.
Yeah. So ultimately, till 2040, what has been defined is that we have a human landing on the moon. And if we send human beings to space, that is very important. Test how our own Indian-made launch vehicle will be able to take these astronauts to the mission, and all those tests will be required to be done for us to then have a lander which will land on moon and even bring the astronauts. And I'm very sure that ISRO will do it by 2050.
All right. Now, some would say that, it happened in '82 as well, that an Indian astronaut had gone up, in fact, stayed at the space station as well. What's so significant now? What is the clear distinction now that is the clear distinction now only that we're doing it all by our own dint instead of relying on others?
Yes, definitely. Firstly, we are doing it by ourselves. And when you send human beings to space, there are many more technologies which get developed. And these are the same technologies which will then be used when a human being from India is landed on. So it is not only sending 3 people, it is not a status issue. It is development of the technology, development of the technique, and assurance that we can take it forward for later landing.
And the other infrastructure facilities for space, our space capabilities that the PM inaugurated today, what would their significance be in your assessment?
ISRO has been doing a great job, and they have been developing. They have got a very good infrastructure which has been made over the years by resources given by the government. These are add-ons to that. There was a PSLV integration facility. There is a trisonic wind tunnel, which where equipments are tested at different Mach from 0.4 to 3 Mach, and semi-cryogenic engine and stage test facility. So these are the 3 facilities which were around that place and in Mahendragiri, which were inaugurated by the Prime Minister.
Right. General Bhatt, thank you so much for joining us and talking about these developments where India's space ambitions are concerned. Now, voting is underway in the upper house of the Indian Parliament, that's the Rajya Sabha, for 15 seats across 3 states. While 41 of the 56 candidates have been elected to the Rajya Sabha unopposed, voting is taking place for 10 seats in Uttar Pradesh, 4 in Karnataka and 1 in Himachal Pradesh. Polling has begun and the counting will be taken up by today evening itself. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has addressed the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industries, that is FICCI's National Conclave on Viksit Bharat at 2047 in the national capital. While delivering the address, she said it is our duty to provide the coming generation with a better India.
It is our duty to provide the future coming generations a better India which gives opportunities for our youth. Indian industry, even during the British time, have always aligned with national interest and kept growing even against severe odds posed by the imperial colonial ruler.
India's Minister for Information and Broadcasting Anurag Singh Thakur, while addressing FICCI's National Conclave on Viksit Bharat 2047, said that in the last 10 years, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has laid the foundation for good governance and development, and India has emerged from the fragile 5 economies.
If you look at the last 15 months, the average tax collection in the GST is 1,66,000 crore rupees, which is much more than 95,000 crore rupees, which was pre-COVID era. I'll say Modi ji is a man of alliances. Whether it is an international solar alliance, biofuel alliance, or many other such alliances which happened at the international level. One after another such alliances has happened because of the strong leadership of Prime Minister Modi.
FICCI's National Conclave was also addressed by Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal, where he highlighted the growing confidence in India's potential and the nation's rising stature on the global stage.
When I see the response we are getting across the world in terms of India's positioning at various international fora, everything seems to be falling into place for the India story to flourish, for India to be the preferred destination for foreign investments, and the vision that the Prime Minister has laid out before the country of Viksit Bharat by 2047 clearly seems very, very achievable, very, very doable. And I think the entire nation has adopted that as our mantra, as our collective effort to reach the goal of a developed nation, to add to maybe $30 trillion to our economy.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has welcomed Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Thailand, Dr. Parnpree Bahiddha-Nukara. Dr. Parnpree will co-chair the 10th India-Thailand Joint Commission with Dr. Jaishankar. It's his first official visit to India. The Indian Army has inducted a new bridge-laying system today that is made in India. More from DD India's Nandita Dagar.
This is the launch vehicle of the 45-meter modular bridge, which has been designed by the DRDO and manufactured by Larsen & Toubro. It has been handed over to the Indian Army and has been delivered, accepted ceremonially by the Army Chief General Manoj Pandey. This modular bridge with a width of 4 meters can be laid in combinations of various lengths parallelly. Also, it has a very high endurance and its life is around 30 years. And that is why it can endure temperatures up to 45 degrees Celsius maximum and minimum 0 degrees Celsius. A commander and 6 men will be needed to operate this 45-meter modular bridge. Tanks, armored vehicles of up to 70 tons can traverse this bridge. This has a very high endurance and load carrying capacity. These are the various ramp vehicles which will load and unload these modules, different modules of the same bridge, and it will take around 90 minutes in the day to lay out the bridge fully and about 120 minutes in the night to lay it out fully. With camera person Vishwa Bandhu in New Delhi, this is Nandita Dagar for DD India.
A national court has charged former Prime Minister Imran Khan and his wife Bushra on Tuesday in Pakistan for allegedly accepting land as bribe during his tenure. Khan, at the age of 71, has been in jail since August on various charges and has consistently denied all accusations. Taiwan claimed on Tuesday that 5 Chinese Coast Guard ships entered into restricted waters around the nation's frontline Kinmen Islands amid rising tensions with Beijing. Head of Taiwan's Ocean Affairs Council, Quan Bi-ling, added that the ships left shortly after being warned by authorities. This comes after China stepped up patrols in the waters of the coast of Taiwan's Kinmen Archipelago, days after 2 of its nationals died trying to flee Taiwan's Coast Guard after their boat entered prohibited waters.
Yesterday, in our territorial waters, there was one Chinese ship that entered our off-limit territorial waters and 4 Chinese ships that entered our restricted territorial waters, all of them for a short amount of time. But our Coast Guards responded to each one of them in accordance with their rankings and communicated that we hoped they would leave.
And still to come on DD India News Hour, Bitcoin crosses $57,000 to reach a 2-year high. India continues to maintain its position at the 2nd spot in the World Test Championship 2023-25 points table.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world, one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Bitcoin has hit a 2-year high on Tuesday on signs of large players buying the cryptocurrency. Bitcoin has rallied more than 10% in 2 sessions. It rose as far as $57,036, its highest since late 2021. Ether rose so far as $3,275, which is highest since April 2022. On Monday, trading volumes in several of the funds spiked and crypto-linked firms rallied as well, in contrast to nervous broader markets. And now if we talk about global markets, Asian stocks declined on Tuesday as slightly higher than anticipated inflation in Japan caused concern among investors ahead of forthcoming price data in Europe and the US this week. The Japanese yen stabilized against the dollar at 150 and rebounded from a 3-month low against the euro as Japanese inflation met the central bank's 2% target, bolstering expectations of a potential exit from negative interest rates in April. Although Tokyo's Nikkei index reached a new record high, closing just 0.01% higher, MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan dipped by 0.2%, remaining below last week's 7-month peak. Meanwhile, S&P 500 figures saw a slight 0.1% decline, with Nasdaq, FTSE and European futures also dropping approximately 0.2%. Now, India's per capita monthly household expenditure more than doubled in 2022-23 compared to 2011-2012, according to the latest study of National Sample Survey Office, or the NSSO. NSSO, under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, conducted household consumption expenditure survey during August 2022 to July 2023. The survey aims at generating estimates of household monthly per capita consumption expenditure, that's MPCE, and its distribution separately for the rural and urban sectors of the country. This is for both states and union territories and for different socio-economic groups. According to the survey, the average MPCE at current prices more than doubled to 6,459 rupees in urban areas in 2022-23 from 2,630 rupees, that is Indian rupees, in 2021-2012. Similarly, in rural areas, it jumped from 3,773 rupees from 1,430 rupees at current prices. And it's time now to get some sporting updates as well. Now, India consolidated its position as the 2nd spot in the World Test Championship 2023-25 points table, following its 5-wicket victory against England in the 4th Test in Ranchi on Monday. England's percentage took a further hit with the loss and fell to 19.44%, keeping the side in the 9th spot. Ben Stokes' team has also been docked 19 points for slow over rate. New Zealand remains at the top of the table after completing a 2-0 series sweep against South Africa earlier in February. Now, India's young stars led Team India to victory against England in the Test series. Not only did India tame England's baseball approach, but showcased a renewed side that also presents a promising future. Here's a report that tells you more about India's young cricketing army. Take a look.
Team India recently clinched the Test series against England, creating history. Not only did Team India become the first to beat England in the baseball era, but India's young lads gave a powerful performance, once again ensuring a promising future for the sport. Dhruv Jurel, a Player of the Match award in only his second Test, plaudits from the experts, and praise from his England counterpart, Indian wicketkeeper Dhruv Jurel, could not have dreamt of a better start to his international career. Jurel made his Test debut in the third Test in Rajkot, where India steamrolled England by 434 runs, their biggest Test victory by runs. Yashasvi Jaiswal, the left-handed Jaiswal who made his India debut last year during the tour of the West Indies, is on a run-making spree. Jaiswal struck 2 double hundreds in the second and third Tests against England. Not only this, the 22-year-old Jaiswal joined Indian batting legends Sunil Gavaskar, Virat Kohli, Rahul Dravid as well as Dilip Sardesai in amassing more than 600 runs in a Test series. Akashdeep made his Test debut in the India vs England fourth Test at the JSCA Stadium in Ranchi. The 27-year-old bowled dream opening spell on Test debut, blowing away the England top order en route to 3 for 70. Sarfraz Khan. Maharashtra's Sarfraz joined the esteemed company of Gavaskar, Dilawar Hussain and Shreyas Iyer to become just the fourth Indian to smash twin 50s on Test debut. After receiving his Test cap from former India captain Anil Kumble, the Mumbai-based batter smashed 62 runs of 66 deliveries in India's first innings. Shubman Gill. After the quick exits of Jadeja and Khan, Gill and Jurel undertook a crucial resurrection job, guiding India to victory without further damage. Their approach involved taking their time, holding guard and playing eye-pleasing shots that significantly contributed to India's triumph. The cricket fraternity went into cheers, lauding India's victory against England, saying that there are many architects for this historic victory, while others described this as maturity and temperament beyond his age and experience. Sports Desk, DD India.
Now, the Indian basketball team put up a spirited fight against a much higher-ranked Iran in their Group E clash of the 2025 FIBA Asia Cup quarterfinals, but ended up on the losing side of a 53-86 score line at the Indira Gandhi Stadium on Monday. Ranked 81st in the FIBA rankings, India were the underdogs against 27th ranked Iran, but the hosts started with a lot of gumption as the packed stadium cheered them throughout the hour-long match. Forward Pranab Prince, who top scored for the hosts with 11 points, impressed with the interceptions in the initial few minutes as the hosts took a 2-point lead in the first minute. Now, as India gears up for its biggest festival of democracy, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government has encouraged first-time voters to exercise their democratic right by joining the hashtag Mera Pehla Vote Desh Ke Liye campaign. Take a look at this inspiring endeavor.
की हूँ कोई बच्ची नहीं हूँ पर कच्ची नहीं। मानो या ना मानो तुम, कुछ बड़ा करने की है बारी यही, भविष्य देश का लिखने की तैयारी यही। बचपन से अब तक मेरी माटी ने दुलारा, आज मुझको है मेरे देश ने पुकारा। आज चल पड़े हैं हम सबके कदम, बदलने भाग्य देश का निकल पड़े हैं हम। आज चल पड़े हैं हम सबके कदम, बदलने भाग्य देश का निकल पड़े हैं हम। हो बनेगा देश महान जब वोट करेंगे हम। ये जीवन ये तन मन सब कुछ है तुम्हारा, आज मुझको है मेरे देश ने पुकारा। जो सोचे और ठाने तो करके दिखा दे, ऐसे है मेरे देश के फौलादी इरादे। आज चल पड़े हैं
से कन्याकुमारी है सब अपने यहाँ पे कोई बेगाना नहीं हम तो यहाँ पे सब देश के दीवाने तो हमसे कोई टकराना नहीं
आवाज यही अधिकार यही आजादी का पुरस्कार यही लोकतंत्र का पहले संस्कार यही
अपनी यारी की खाओ कसम करेंगे अपना पहला वोट देश के लिए हम ये जीवन
फर्स्ट टाइम
जी सर सब कुछ है तुम्हारा आज मुझको है मेरे देश ने पुकारा.
And that's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X as well as Instagram. We'll be back with more news and updates as they break here on DD India. For the moment, thanks for watching this broadcast.